Well, did you know that actually the World Bank estimates that Uganda loses about $2 billion annually due to inadequate education skills? Well, this staggering figure definitely underscores the immense economic burden of an undereducated population. That's a mind-blowing fact. $2 billion annually due to lack of proper education skills. That's according to the World Bank. That's the amount of money Uganda loses. And now we're centering the discussion in here on of course, looking at empowering Uganda's future and education being a key to economic prosperity. I don't know, is education really a key to economic prosperity for Uganda's situation? We're now speaking for Uganda. We can put aside the rest of the world at Uganda strictly. Do you think so?
Yes, it's key.
Why?
Because it equips us with the knowledge and the skills we require. Because just a while ago, a few minutes ago, we're talking about why our innovations are not sustainable. Exactly. Yeah. But it comes up with the limit. If at all I've gone to, okay, I don't want to say mainly the education we have, the education system and all that, but then these days we've seen people going for tertiary, the vocational, you understand. So if at all I've gone for these trainings and I've equipped myself with the skills needed, meaning I'm able to do my part so well, I'm able to perform more effectively, I would say. So it equips us with knowledge and skills, because with this education, I know what I'm doing.
You know what you're doing. Maybe when we hear education, what comes in our mind is going to class.
Oh, yes.
On a uniform.
That is where I've talked about the tertiary and the vocational bit of it.
Yeah. But, sometimes education can be a personal responsibility. You can educate yourself about matters. Yeah. You can self-teach yourself about matters, But in here, a report still also reveals that 66% of Ugandan children complete primary education, and the quality of learning often falls short of global standards, the quality of learning. So I'm trying to understand how a tool for economic prosperity is falling short of global standards.
It depends on the, when it comes to quality, remember the people that go to the public schools and those that are in private schools.
In private schools,
and it's believed that the ones that go to private schools are, they stand higher chances of getting what we would call the best education there is. Because remember, in public schools, why they say it falls down, because in public schools, teachers come to class because I would say they have to,
when they feel
like, when there is need. Or you might find that a teacher teaching math is the same teacher going to come and teach them literacy.
Okay.
So he's teaching all the four subjects that would have been taught at least by one that has the knowledge. If I'm teaching maths, then let it be maths. Let me teach them what I know, you understand, what I did study. But then they're also doing the basics. Like, meaning, if a teacher could teach... So
teachers are teaching basics?
In the public schools.
I think it's not even only in public schools. In a number of schools, institutions, having basics about something, and we don't look at
the
in-depth of something, because the in-depth will always, like we mentioned, foreseeing possible difficulties and developing a solution for them earlier on, and all that. I don't know, when you're watching in there, what do you really think? Because the aspect that our education shortfalls of global standards clearly explains the state of our innovations in a wanting state, just to feel satisfied that we are innovators, yet in actual sense we are not. Now, of course, there are quite a number of weaknesses within this system, of the education system. Of course, the skills mismatch a little bit in here, as the education system often fails to align with the demands of the labor market. Now, I think that's the biggest challenge. The system, the labor market demands a certain skill, but there is a mismatch. But now, if we are to put it down to the entrepreneurship level, that means even the entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial world needs a certain skill which is not obtained by these children from day one and all that. Of course, the inadequate funding a little bit from that, but we get to understand the money that is needed to fund vis-a-vis what we lose annually. And later on, that could triple from 3.2 billion to to about 6 or 9, you know, if we don't take in that. But of course, grateful for what has been happening. Of course, most especially with the new curriculum, which is prioritizing the skills and so many aspects and training of the teachers from that way. But another sad perspective in here, you know, the whole discussion about education being a key to the future, being mythical for the Ugandan context, and knowing that the people who hold the key to Uganda's future, they are individuals that are actually holding the key to Uganda's future, but it's not education.
Yeah.
What do you think?
The individuals
that are holding the key to Uganda's future, but it's not education holding the key to Uganda's future.
When it comes to the individuals, I feel like you cannot just hold the key to the future when you're also not equipped with the necessary knowledge.
Knowledge. Anyway, let me see what they say. Of course, my report here reveals that while politicians preach about education as the great equalizer, their children attend elite private schools and worlds away from dilapidated classrooms and unqualified teachers in rural areas.
Exactly.
We mentioned something about
to do with the public and private schools.
The private schools, you know. So a few people hold the key. I mean, in other words, the richest people hold the key.
We would say.
Yeah, the richest people who take their children to schools that don't have this education, and those people get up to the real education, the real entrepreneurship skill. That, because we can always gauge the strength of any system by testing it with a crisis. It can be stage managed crisis. Normally it's done. Exchange programs are done. Now, like recently, what happened in Entebbe about an exchange program? I think it was last year, and the plane crashed, and they were training the staff to see in case of danger. Of course, they make it crash, and they train out something. But now that's what our education system lacks. We don't. We just assume it will work, and we have this hope, and we feel like we are positive about this, that it's going to work, and not until the actual issue comes in. And we don't get it in here. Now, while studies boast over increased earnings with each year of schooling, they conveniently get to forget to mention the dropout rate, which is about 60%. Dropout rate of schools, 60%.
And you'll be shocked. And this is from the rural areas mainly.
Rural areas
the
mainly.
Urban area.
But even the 40%, how effective is the 40% that has been left in there? And even and actually even of late, the urban there is a increased dropouts in the urban settings. Why? Because now let me tell you something. What is happening lately? Majority of the people of children, when they are studying, when they reach Form 6, when they get the Form 4 certificate, in most cases, they drop out. They decide to because the dropout rate, then I'm trying to compare it to people that acquire degrees. That is true. And now here the dropout rate still spreads across people completing even all level, you know, and all that. But people are now diverting to vocation after I get my Form 6 certificate, because the world out there doesn't care what degree you have in business science and all that. Do you have a skill?
Exactly.
That's what matters. You know, that is what is. That's what matters. Now, a dropout rate at 60%. So by the time students reach secondary level, no, actually, that is the dropout rate is 60% by the time the students reach secondary level. Now that's right. 60% of Uganda's investment vanishes into thin air, leaving behind a trail of wasted potential and broken dreams.
True.
This is what we're facing in reality. And now, of course, also people claim that, of course, experts critiques for the Uganda's education system, which we call a key and a pillar to economic prosperity. Of course, the system is actually the system is churning out unemployable robots. Now, imagine graduates with, of course, having all these degrees that are having all this, but they can't critically think about something, most especially problem solving. That's what we've been talking about. No critical thinking, but you have the degree, you have the papers. But because I don't have the papers, you think I can't critically think, yet I can, but I just don't have a stamp. That means I can also wake up and pay money and get that stamp. and be a part of it. Now, most of these say that they can regulate facts but can't adapt to a changing job market. Of course, leaving them stuck in low-paying dead-end jobs. Now, this is a consequence of an education system obsessed with rote learning and exams, not innovation and real-world skills.
True.
Because it's performance-oriented. How did you perform?
It's more of theoretical than practical, having the hands-on.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we come out with the papers, but then we cannot even do the skills. I could say, oh my goodness, I can do this. Because I read it and I was able to write it down in an exam and I was given the marks. But then, can you apply it in the real world? And then I think even the employers, before you get employees, I could be having it's believed in the world we live in that the higher the education levels you go to, the more, effective you could be at work. But then the trend is now changing, because I could go and do maybe, I could be having a master's degree in maybe mass communication or in my economics and, but then at the end of the day, I cannot support any of those.
Supporting in terms of
like I can't defend them.
All right.
Because they'll ask you, okay, fine, you have this. The employers should be key, like they should be keen to notice that, because if a person brought you their papers, you've seen it, there's a trending meme, I think, on social media, whereby a person says, oh my God, I have experience in IT, I have certificates in IT, I've done IT at campus, They have the papers, true. But then you give them a computer to operate and they cannot do it. They cannot do it. Yeah. They claim they've done the software, but they can't come up with
all the develop softwares.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I've done web designing, create a website for the company. It does not have one, come up with one. You can't put that to the table. But then there's this guy out there, maybe who went to YouTube, because these days we can learn.
It's actually, they call it the University of YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah. They went to YouTube, they got the apps, the learning apps, and he has the skill. He equipped himself with the skill. He's able to do that. Even with his certificate, and you have your master's, this guy can outcompete you. So let's look more at the skills. We look at what one can bring to the table. Not only what's with the papers, because these things are phasing out. Actually, the challenges we are getting now is that people are in offices, but then they're doing lots of nothing there. Just because he has his papers, he's able to, get into an office, and what is he doing? Nothing.
So if we are to weigh their output, they are found wanting.
Exactly.
That's why the Bible says that you have been weighed and found wanting.
So we should look at them, we should consider them. I'm not saying that it's not good to go for, the higher education and all that. No, people go there, and there are people that really come out and you really see the substance, they're impactful with their degrees and all. But then there are also those, like on a scale of 100, 40% know what they're doing. 40%. No. 40% are there for various reasons.
Of course, social status.
Exactly. Oh my goodness, Andrew, you have a master's in mass communication. Oh, that's good. It feels good, prestige and all that. But then, what can you do with that master's at the end of the day? So I'm saying we should also look at these people. Don't come to office. No, you're not going to be given a job. But then, this person has the skill. He knows what he's doing. You understand? So we should also consider them. We should not underlook them and be like, no, that one cannot bring anything to the table. So basically, if the person has the skills, let's give them a chance.
Just give them a chance.
Yes.
And one of the best ways to portray skills is to build a product portfolio whereby you can actually, if like you mentioned, software, you develop a huge number of softwares so that they be a part of your resume. When you put it there out, I mean, your work speaks for you. I don't have papers, but hey, go to this website, there is this application, try it out.
You're able to
that is my CV.
That's good.
Absolutely, very, very beautiful from that. And now, of course, we've seen quite a few aspects in here. Of course, the return on investment, seeing the dropout rate being at 60%, most especially in the rural areas, coming in down to the 40% that are left to continue, who probably seem to be knowing what they're doing, and the system is is churning out unemployable robots as a result. And the issue here now comes at critical thinking and problem-solving mindset, which is not in there. So how can that be a key to economic prosperity? And now, when it comes to access of services, the rich take their children to the elite schools and they get the actual information, and those that are not financially stable, they go to the schools with underqualified teachers. There is dilapidated classrooms. Even the classroom environment in which you operate in will determine your rate of perception of what is being taught in there. And in those elite schools, they have it all, and they get that. And so, how is that a key to prosperity, most especially to economy? And we are looking at the previous economic storms that are hitting this country, Uganda, and we need the actual problem-thinking personnel, which don't seem to be there. Now, of course, somebody says that actually teachers are treated like glorified babysitters. Most of the Ugandan schools said glorified babysitters. And anyway, what does that really paint a picture for that? And now, of course, paid a pittance and left to navigate overcrowded classrooms. What you've been mentioning, paid a certain amount of money, but they're just navigating crowded classrooms.
Exactly. And actually, even the crowded classrooms demotivate these kids. Because at the end of the day, you'll ask a kid, why haven't you gone to school?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you, my teacher only concentrates on the children that are seated in the front.
At the front.
But remember, this is a classroom that has like 150 children. Okay. What do you expect? If at all they're concentrated on those at the front, meaning the ones at the back are just, making noise. And so a boy will be, why am I even going to school?
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you realize in it how, because such circumstances in which these children grow in, it makes them feel like education is a punishment.
Exactly.
So it's going to be very hard for a child to be innovative in such an environment.
How do you convince such a child to, go to school?
So it's going to feel like a punishment. They're doing it for their parents.
Exactly.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, when we're registering maybe, I would say, primary 7 students, you'll find that the number has dropped. Actually, even this year, it dropped.
It dropped.
It dropped. Not because of anything. Okay, last year we were, saying, oh, it's COVID, due to COVID, some kids have grown and, they feel like they're not fit to be in those classes. But then this year, what's our excuse? Maybe we could say the finances,
yes. Drained financially.
Exactly. But then it also comes back to the health, the mental health of these kids. A kid cannot be going to school under a tree and you expect him to be happy every day going to school. It takes, too much determination for one to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so if a person is, these faint-hearted ones, they'll be like, why am I even going to school? It's a punishment. No, I can't. And they'll drop out.
Because we've been talking about encouraging research, because the reason that's why these children go to school is to be thinkers and problem solvers for the future. And now with school, we believe there is access to knowledge. But now see a scenario whereby even the circumstances in which I'm accessing the knowledge are also harsh.
Yes.
What is going to affect me? I mean, and from that young age, at a tender age, that's when that perspective should be put into a kid that I'm here to be a critical thinker and solve the world's future problems. But if at a tender age, the child is already looking at education as a punishment, it's gonna be, chances are high that it's gonna persist for some time, and they will realize later what the purpose of that education was, and it will be too late.
Too late, yes.
So I'm not going to blame the kids, but I think it calls for collective, really, investment. If we are saying that it's the future, let's really have investment.
Yes.
Let's not have elite schools for the people. At least let's have schools with global standards. It may not be that excellent, but at least something that can be acceptable.
Up to standard.
That is acceptable in the world.
Yes.
Absolutely interesting. Now, of course, the curriculum which is being revised, the colonial curriculum, at least that one is being revised, but I think we need to entirely embrace it to the maximum. Because I'm thinking, when are we even going to start realizing the fruits of this curriculum? because we need to have expectations. As we test it, we need to see it working. Is it impacting the children? You know, I'm expecting to see innovators at a younger age in the time to come in this nation, Uganda, because these kids are being exposed to different, computer science at quite a tender age. I would expect more innovations. I would do that. Of course, there is also corruption and mismanagement, which siphons off millions of money that is meant for education. And of course, the leaky pipelines ensure that the allocated 3.9% of GDP barely reaches the classrooms, leaving students with textbooks from the previous decade and no internet access in a digital age. So is education the answer? If the status quo is maintained, it will never be the answer. That's my opinion.
But then to an extent, it is an answer, I would say.
Why?
The rest are like other factors.
Other factors?
Yeah, I believe.
I think it's just that it makes you feel safe. That's what I can say. Into the future. But that is a deception. I feel like you're deceiving yourself because of a picture that has been painted for you that
already by someone else.
It's going to be okay for you when you have this education of the current status quo. I'm talking about the education of the current status quo. Education itself, in its right packaging, is entirely perfect because it's not about going to school. Even if you sit on your computer, you can get education.
Yes.
But if it's so, we need to give our children the true packaging of education. If it means to tell them the resources they can obtain, for those that can access them, let them do. But we are limiting them to what we can give them in our perimeters because we want to still feel relevant in their lives and afraid of losing their country because it's the way you teach a child that already knows what they know. They're going to challenge you as a teacher in class.
Yeah, true.
They are bound to see your mistakes in class. So, but for us in Uganda, in Africa in general, we are biased towards that because there is that superiority complex that we have. You're a child. What are you supposed to tell me?
We feel like what the teacher says is
right.
That's it.
And even the teachers, that because of that complexity of superiority complex, they are not humble enough to know that a child can actually show them that this is a mistake you made in here. So, but if you be a teacher that has a vision of the country, you're saying, but this child is problem solving. You should even be pleased if he finds out more.
But these days we're getting such students. One that is able to stand up and challenge a lecturer or a teacher. And yes, they come up. They come up and speak and be like, because it starts with a culture of research.
Yeah, research.
Because once I've researched about a topic that a teacher is going to teach, maybe tomorrow or the other week, meaning I already have knowledge about something that they're going to talk about. And then once the guy comes in, I'm able to ask questions. I'm able to say, no, you've said this is like this, but then I read a book and the theory says something different. So he's able to challenge the teacher. And at the end of the day, that is now part of learning. I didn't come to class and I was just taught. No, I did some extra research outside. So education does not mean we necessarily have to go and sit down in a classroom and you wait for your teacher and then you're taught. No. Equip yourself. It starts with you. Get the different areas where you can get knowledge from. You could do books, reading books, you could do your research, anything that can equip you with knowledge. Because, education never stops.
Absolutely.
But then people have this perception of when they talk about education, then obviously they're going to mean, where have you studied, Andrew? Where did you go to school? Such things.
Yeah,
that is their mindset. Perception.
Okay.
So we need to change that mindset from just, because I can be educated in a field I didn't even study, but I have the knowledge, I'm well versed with it. Exactly. So education should shift from a mindset of you need to be under a teacher or a supervision of someone and you're learning. No, it cuts across. It's wide. learning never stops. That's what they say. Learning never stops. You understand? But then, obviously, society like Uganda, actually, they even have sayings of obutasoma buluma bukulu. Then oba asomieko tafa chenda, but then asomieko, many people have sat home with their degrees.
Very
many, exactly.
Very many.
And there is this boy that stopped maybe in primary 6. He went and started how to, he learned how to maybe operate. I've seen boys that are technicians.
Technicians.
Yeah, the technicians.
And with technical work, I mean, don't talk about your papers.
Exactly, you don't talk about your papers, exactly. But then that boy is educated in that field. So education is not only being confined under a room or a school, so it cuts across. So we should embrace the new change and even the technology itself. I can learn from my phone now. At any place of my convenience, I'm learning still. So yeah, we should not look at it in only a perspective of I need to be in a classroom. No, let's look at it in a perspective of where am I getting the knowledge from? Am I learning something? You get.
I remember some time back when I was in class at a business university somewhere, and I was studying a course in mathematics, and I put up my hand and I told the lecturer, hey, how am I going to apply functions in my day-to-day life? And the entire classroom laughed. But I was honest with my opinion. I was trying to find the value for what I'm studying. That's why I'm saying, okay, I'll support you to what you say, that education is the key to the future. It's perfect. But that is to a student, to somebody who knows what education, the purpose of education. Not somebody who feels like he's forced to get into education.
He's doing it for someone else.
For someone else. But then I'm talking about a perfect education system whereby even though you feel dragged, you find purpose in the process.
Yes.
But here, you have to be counseled, lectured about the purpose, then get in there. Because it's very boring.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Yes.
So, the current status quo of education can benefit a person who knows what they want. Theoretical, regardless of how theoretical it is, you can always be inquisitive. Like how I asked the question, I told the lecturer, how am I going to apply functions in
the
business?
real world?
Because I'm doing a business course, and I'm seeing the mathematics, and I'm seeing all these functions, sign, and all this. I'm trying to see when am I going to sit down and calculate the sign of my goods and products. I mean, being inquisitive to that extent, I think it would create more impact for that. Well, the discussion is relying on education empowering, being a key to empowering Ghana's economic future, but of course, in a way that it can help avert the possible financial crunches, the possible financial crises that are likely to befall the nation. To what extent will the educated, the elite, find a solution in the shortest time possible? That is the big picture in here. Well, let's take a break for now. We shall be returning to wind this up, still on the topic of how do you survive, how do you wither a financial crunch. Stick around.